Hey everybody, welcome to another segment of astrologyanswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, June the 30th, 2025. And the moon, which I always start off every week, the moon represents more of the general public tone. The moon starts the work week on Monday in Virgo. Virgo's very service-oriented, work-oriented, practical, wants to get the job done. There are no other planetary events, which makes for a calmer day, but the sun is now in Cancer, a water sign. The sun is that background energy compelling us to be more reflective, more focused on home and family. But the sun in Cancer's a water signs in harmony with Virgo, the moon in Virgo, and earth sign. So there's a nice, easy, compatible energy to start off the new work week. On Tuesday, July the 1st, the moon continues in Virgo, but at 2:18 p.m. Pacific time, it enters into Libra, where Virgo was more work-oriented. Libra is more sociable. But when it comes to business, Libra wants to be more fair-minded, wants everybody to, win. The moon in Virgo, just before it goes into Libra, so maybe around from the end of 12 p.m., certainly up to 2:18 p.m., the moon is at the last degree of Virgo, making the best flow of energy to progressive, liberating, inventive Uranus, which is at the last degree of Taurus. And they're both earth signs, very compatible. This is called a trine. So emotionally, the moon, you might be feeling more adventurous, more excited, more willing to take risk, more open to new ideas and even technology. But when the moon moves into Libra, which is looking for more cooperation, it's more sociable, more harmonious for those next 2.5 days. However, by early evening Pacific time, the moon in Libra will be in opposition or confrontation to restricted Saturn in Aries and nebulous, confusing Neptune in Aries. Aries is opposite Libra. So just for a couple of hours in the early evening, Pacific time, emotionally you may be feeling very frustrated, very blocked. On Wednesday, the moon continues in Libra, but it's going to be making a hard angle to the sun in Cancer. So about every 7 days, the moon is either a new moon, a quarter moon. This is a quarter moon, a full moon. The sun represents one's purpose and identity, but it's at cross purposes with the square to the moon in Libra. So emotionally, you might be feeling out of sync for just a couple of hours. On Thursday, July the 3rd, the moon continues in sociable Libra, but it's void of course all day long, which is a little unusual. The void of course means that the moon's not making any aspects to other planets. So there's no activity. And so the rule of thumb is you don't want to start anything important, an event, a new job. Because with the moon void of course, the energy is flat and unproductive. It's good for reflecting. It's good for staying the course, keeping with your routine. But you don't really want to, launch anything new because there's not this energy to push it forwards. On Friday, July the 4th, the 4th of July in the United States, the Day of Independence, we now have the moon, the public moon, is in Scorpio. Scorpio is more passionate, more intense, does prefer more privacy. However, sociable Venus, relational Venus, will be in Taurus, aligning with Uranus at the very end of Taurus. This is quite favorable for celebrating because Venus is very pleasure-oriented, very sociable. It can represent this desire for playfulness and entertainment. And when it aligns with Uranus, it brings in all this kind of excitement, new opportunities. Now, by mid-afternoon Pacific time, that kind of emotionally intense moon in Scorpio will be trining or in harmony with expansive optimistic Jupiter in Cancer. Cancer's a water sign, Scorpio's a water sign, so their energies are very favorable and in harmony. Could be making plans or thinking about the future with Jupiter, with traveling, with education. On Saturday, the moon in Scorpio will be in harmony with the sun in Cancer because they're both water sign. So it's a day when things are more effortless, things are more in flow. It's good for socializing. By later in the day, the last part of the day, Pacific time, pleasurable, entertaining, relational Venus will be in harmony with practical Saturn. Venus-Saturn, you could even be discussing your relationship and feeling more, more secure about it, that it's more long-lasting, more stable. But also any type of socializing and entertainment with the Saturn could be more grounded, more realistic, more pragmatic. Sunday, the moon continues in all or nothing intense Scorpio, but by 3:09 p.m. Pacific time, it moves into fiery, adventurous Sagittarius. But right before the moon leaves Scorpio, from about 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific time, the moon will be opposite Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is at the last degree of Taurus, and the moon is at the last degree of Scorpio. So there's this tension, this interaction, this opposition. There could be a lot of emotional upsets or a lot of emotional surprises. But even if emotionally you're stressed out, you're getting really anxious news, at 3:09 p.m. Pacific time, the moon leaves moody, dark Scorpio and goes into optimistic, outgoing Sagittarius. And by early evening, the moon in Sagittarius, a fire sign, will be in harmony with realistic Saturn in Aries, a fire sign, and inspirational Neptune in Aries, a fire sign. So from mid-afternoon, as the moon goes into Sag, Pacific time, you're going to be feeling more upbeat, more inspired about your future. And with Sagittarius, you're really looking at your long-range goals. But it could also be just basically with Sagittarius about traveling. And if you're in the northern latitude, we're in the summer vacation period. So this is good for going on your trip, starting your trip on Sunday, or making plans for the coming days or weeks. I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.